Okay, let's just jump right in. You've heard it, I've heard it, we've all heard it, especially when it feels like the price of everything is just going through the roof. It's the standard explanation, right? Sounds so simple.
Yep, that one. The Fed is printing money. It's everywhere, isn't it? In headlines, on the news. The idea is that there's some giant machine in a basement somewhere just churning out cash, and that's why everything costs more. It's a really powerful image.
But what if I told you that simple story is basically a myth? What if the real way money gets made is way more surprising? And honestly, once you get it, the economy starts to make a whole lot more sense.
So let's do it. Let's take a closer look at this story we all think we know. When someone says printing money, what do you picture? Come on, be honest. For most of us, it's a very literal, physical thing.
You know the drill, right? The story goes like this. The government needs cash, so they call up the Fed. The Fed flips a switch on the printing press, stacks of new dollars get dumped into the economy, and boom, more money chasing the same amount of stuff means prices go up. A nice, neat little story.
And that's the thing. It's beautifully simple. It's easy to understand, easy to repeat. There's just one tiny problem. It's just not how our financial system actually works anymore.
And boom! This right here, this is what shatters that whole printing press idea. The physical cash, the actual bills and coins in your wallet, that's less than 10% of all the money out there. Over 90% of our money is just digital. It's numbers on a screen. So if most money isn't physical, a printing press can't be the main character in this story. Which begs the question, who's creating all that digital money?
And this brings us right to the heart of it. If the Fed isn't literally printing it, who is? Who's typing those numbers into the computer? Well, the answer is probably not who you think.
Okay, here it is, the big reveal. It's commercial banks. Yeah, the bank on your street corner, the one that gave you a car loan. They are the primary creators of new money in our economy. Not the government, not the Federal Reserve, but private banks.
So how on earth do they do that? Let's walk through it. Say you go to your bank and ask for a $10,000 loan. The bank doesn't go into a vault and grab 10 grand that someone else already deposited. Nope. When they approve your loan, they just type. And a brand new, fresh deposit of $10,000 appears in your account. And just like that, poof, the total amount of money in the economy just went up by 10 grand.
And this is where you get that famous phrase. It sounds so conspiratorial, right? Banks create money out of thin air. But in a purely functional accounting sense, it's true. When a bank makes a loan, it's not lending out old money. It's creating new money.
Okay, so if commercial banks are the ones creating all this money, then what is the Federal Reserve even doing all day? Well, let's get clear on what their real job is in all of this. The Fed's number one tool isn't a printing press. It's interest rates. The easiest way to think about an interest rate is just the price of borrowing money. And that price is what the Fed controls.
And here's how that all connects. When the Fed lowers interest rates, it makes borrowing money cheaper. So naturally, more people and more businesses want to take out loans, and that encourages banks to create more money. On the flip side, when the Fed jacks up interest rates, borrowing gets expensive. Demand for loans dries up, and banks slow way down on creating new money. The key here is that the Fed isn't ordering banks around. It's just changing the incentives.
And this, right here, is the absolute best way to think about it. The Fed is not a faucet where they can just turn a handle and pour money into the economy. They are a thermostat. They set the financial temperature, the interest rate, to make the whole environment hotter or colder for banks to create money by lending.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can almost hear it. Okay, fine. But what about QE? What about quantitative easing? Didn't the Fed print trillions of dollars after 2008 and during the pandemic? That's a fantastic question, and we absolutely have to talk about it.
To get what QE is, you first have to know about this weird, special kind of money called bank reserves. Think of it like a special currency that only banks can use with each other and with the Fed. It's like casino chips. You and I can't take those chips outside the casino to buy groceries. They have to stay locked inside the banking system. So here's how QE actually works. The Fed buys assets, like government bonds, from the commercial banks. And in exchange for those assets, it gives the banks brand new bank reserves, those special casino chips. Now, the goal is to flood the banks with so much of this internal cash that they feel super safe and confident and start lending more out into the real economy. But, and this is the absolute key, those reserves don't automatically become loans. The bank still needs you to walk in the door and apply for a loan. If no one's borrowing, those reserves just sit there.
So after all that, what really causes the inflation that we feel every day? If it's not as simple as the Fed turns on the printer, then what is it?
You know, the classic definition is still the best one. At its very core, inflation is just a simple mismatch between supply and demand. It's what happens when the amount of money wanting to buy stuff grows faster than the amount of stuff there is to buy.
So the complete picture looks more like a system, a chain reaction. It starts with banks feeling confident enough to lend and people feeling confident enough to borrow. That creates new money. That new money then increases the demand for everything from cars to lumber. And if at the same exact time, supply chains are a mess and factories can't keep up, well, that's when you get that classic too much money chasing too few goods problem.
So let's lock this in. What are the big takeaways here? Number 1, commercial banks create most of our money when they make loans. That's where it comes from. Number 2, the Fed isn't the puppet master. They control the incentives to lend by setting the price of money. And number 3, inflation isn't the work of a single villain at a printing press. It's a complex system problem, a tug of war between new money being created and the real world's ability to produce things.
And that leaves us with a final thought. The next time you hear people talking about inflation and printing money, you'll know the real story is much deeper than that. The real action, the moment of creation, happens when a loan is made. So the question is, where are you going to focus your attention now? On the myth of the printer? Or on what the lenders are actually doing? Because that shift in perspective, it changes everything.